Hello again, this is Phil at the Laptop Trader channel on YouTube. Welcome to our community. Again, I'm here to share my experience and give back to the stock investing and trading community one video at a time. There's my contact information and a quick disclaimer. Most stock traders do lose money. Please protect yourself at all times. Nothing discussed in this video is trading or investing advice. This channel is for informational purposes only. Please seek qualified help if you need help investing. This month's agenda on June of 2023. It's going to be pretty detailed. We're going to cover some stage analysis, trend, price candles, pivots, and my preferred entry points, which I refer to as a 3BT or a 3-bar turn. I'll describe that for you. Or a consolidation and a move higher from an area, or that's called a breakout. And we're going to apply an approach to this list of stocks coming up in May into June. So I'm going to show you guys how do I put together my weekly agenda for my trading plan and my style of trading using last week's list and also a new search here after the market closed for the weekend, a new search of stocks that were making new highs. It's a big mistake to just throw away previous ideas or previous ones that came on your radar. I encourage you to keep watching. That has been a big mistake I've made here in my career. And then we're going to start out. We're just going to quickly look over our market ETF charts so we get a market context and a general bias of where the market's kind of headed. Then we're going to sort our list using a longer term chart, 3 to 5 year chart, so we can identify the stages we're in. We'll spend about 10 seconds or less per chart, so this will go through quickly and you should be able to catch on. Currently in my list I have about 180 ideas that we're going to quickly cut in half and eliminate any for this upcoming week. Doesn't mean we're going to throw all of them out. Some of them will be thrown out, and then some may be moved to a future list. So you're always going to be kind of recycling this list as to what goods looks good now, what doesn't, and what you're just not interested in, or maybe what may look good in the future. Then, after we've done that initial sort, we're going to drop down in time frame to zoom in to the best opportunities as I see them for my plan for this week. So you can follow along and adjust your plan and your style, as you see fit. So this is just kind of an outline of how I go about it. And the question we're asking in our mind when we look at these charts through stage analysis, bar by bar analysis, and other ideas when we read these charts, we're considering in our mind buy, sell, or hold. That's how I keep it very simple for myself: buy, sell, or hold, right? So I'm considering the upcoming week or next couple of weeks. A buy can be an open a position or add to a position. Sell can be eliminate or close a position or sell part of a position or not to buy at this time. So sell can be sell or just not at this time, right? And hold would be continue to hold for price appreciation if I'm already in the position, or kind of wait and see before I enter if price moves one way or the other. So almost like a red, yellow, green light approach. It's kind of how I approach this. My weekly homework. This is basically what I do for my homework. Okay. So quickly, I'm going to look at the 4 stages. I look at it as a big bell. and the 4 stages of any market. This section will be review. I'm going to go quickly through this. This is basically on every video. It's on previous videos in detail. We'll just review it for our new members. Again, here's 4 stages. Price action. 1, and then 2 is an uptrend. Then 3 is kind of a topping trend or a climax, and then 4 is a downtrend. There's different names for the 4 stages. I've covered this in previous videos, so I'll just let this sit here for a few seconds so you guys can just get the idea. Again, you can always pause the video if you need to come back. And then we're going to see a lot more of this picture because we just came out of a major bear market. So this is more of what we're going to see in these upcoming charts. Okay, stage 1 or stage 2. Some are still in a stage 4, and some are already in stage 2. Again, as a review for our newer members, what a pivot high looks like in general. There's going to be a lot of different variations of this, and what a pivot low looks like. Okay, very easy. You're going to have a middle candle on a pivot high with three lower candles to the left and 3 lower candles to the right, especially on a daily time frame. And then a pivot low is the opposite. You're going to have a low candle with 3 higher candles to the left and 3 higher candles to the right. Again, these can come in various forms, but we'll keep moving forward. That's just a pivot high and a pivot low. And this is what candlesticks look like. Green candlesticks and red candlesticks, that's what I use for my analysis, price analysis. And they're easy to read, easy to interpret. Okay, this is how you would interpret these. This is review. These are on other videos, so I'm not really going to go through these. I'm going to let it sit here for about 10 seconds so new people can catch on. Okay, moving on. So that's how you read a candlestick. This is my main picture I'm looking for when I look to enter a new position or add to a position. I'm looking for 3 candles. This would be, they can be different colors, but this would be coming down, and you'd have a lower candle. And then the main thing about this setup is this 3rd candle should close above the previous 2, or at or about there, okay? So that's the turn. We're looking for this turnaround. That's why I call it a 3-bar turn. On some of my things, I've abbreviated that as 3BT. That's the main thing I'm looking for. The second thing I'm looking for is more of a consolidation, and then a continuation from that consolidation to an uptrend. I don't really have a good picture of that yet. I'll have to draw one for you guys, but we'll see it in the charts. Again, this is also review. This is kind of how I look at the market top down. I look at the indexes, ETFs. I look at sectors. And then I've got even a longer list of other ETFs that go inside of these sectors to break it down. But we'll stop with these top, I don't know, 12 or 15. Okay, so this will give us a market context. Where we expect the market in general to go, up, down, or sideways. Now we'll go to some live charts for you guys. I've got this pulled up as a list. So there we've got my ETF list. I don't know if you can see that ETF list. I'm just going to break out into these charts, okay? So looking at the markets, I'm just going to go out real quick, let's say to a 3-year chart. So this will be very easy to see. We're going to think of our market stage, our market context, which way it's kind of trending, and then we're going to try to match are these other stocks to the trend. Okay, so this is kind of a general ETF that everybody watches, the SPY or the S&P 500. And as we can see, it's come down. This is a bear market, and now it's starting to kind of trend up. Where you can see you got a this is a pivot right here. Got a higher low. Here's a low. There's a higher low pivot, slightly higher low pivot, and then we're kind of coming into this resistance. We've got this high pivot, a high pivot here, and it looks like we're kind of breaking out with that candle right there. Okay. If I zoom in, you'll see it clearer. So I'm going from a 3-year chart to a 3-month chart, and you can see how this was back and forth, back and forth. This was more of a consolidation right here. This is more of a range, and then we have this consolidation. We had to break out from this consolidation up 3 days in a row. Hopefully you can see that. So that's breaking out above this consolidation. That is bullish. That means prices should continue to move up. They may retrace too, but we don't know until that happens. But that looks more positive, prices moving up, than it does prices moving down for sure. And the trend is starting to turn up. This is a pretty nasty bear market. This is no joke. Right? So this has taken since last January of 2022 to play out. So now we're in May of 2023 going into June. So that's kind of what I thought would happen with this, somewhere between a 15 to 18 month bear market. It looks like the bear market is over, but things can change. Okay, so this could retrace and come back down to the bottom of this range. That's always a possibility. But I think this market making new lows, I don't expect that. So in my opinion, it's just an opinion, I think the worst is over. Okay. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. We're going to look at the next ETF I would follow, the Qs. This has probably been one of the strongest, if not the strongest ETF. It has a lot of major companies in it, like Apple and Microsoft, and Oracle and NVIDIA and that, and it's very strong. It's also showing a breakout over all this area. It consolidated for about 6 weeks. It's even breaking out over this pivot. That suggests higher prices. So far, our bias is higher prices. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF. It's only 30 stocks, but they're major companies and they do matter. And this stock doesn't look as bullish. It does not look as strong as the others. In fact, it looks like it could roll over and test some area down here. We don't know where, maybe 326, maybe below that, maybe even 320. I don't know. It definitely looks weaker than the other markets. So that would be something that's negative for the markets and the economy. But we'll see. It's another ETF that I regularly follow, which covers 2,000 different stocks. It's a more broad-based index, which covers a lot more companies than the other 3 put together. There's a lot smaller companies. And so this index is actually more bearish, more almost like a continued downtrend, where it looked like it was going to come up and make a higher low pivot, a higher high pivot, and then it just rolled over. And I think that's because of this banking issue. I think these financial stocks are pulling down some of these other companies. I'm sure there's good companies within this index, but the majority of the companies are having a tough time right now. Now, it may bounce back up here and maybe come retest this top of the range. So this may be more sideways too for a while, but currently it looks like it could roll over and sell off a little more. So that's going to depend more on certain industries, certain parts of the economy, and the overall economy, and stuff like interest rates and stuff like that. So this is kind of on the edge right now. Could go either way. It looks lower, but it's also held that area for about 10 weeks. So this could turn back up too. So that's kind of a negative. Then we're going to look at transportation stocks. Transportation also kind of affects everything. That looks more neutral to me. It did have this sell off here, and it's kind of hung down kind of in that lower third of this large red bar right here. It also is consolidated somewhat and came up slightly in price over the last 8 weeks to 10 weeks. This bottoming tail bar here is kind of positive. It showed that sellers tried to take price lower but could not. And that was followed by a green bar, red bar. So there's this back and forth in this index that could go either way. So that looks pretty neutral to me as far as transports go. In general, if transports are moving up, the economy is moving up. Transports are moving down or sideways, that means there's a slowdown in the economy. Then these next three are related. Copper, it's just like a copper ETF. Related to copper miners, that looks again kind of neutral to bearish. That could also go either way. Short term, it looks bearish, like it could go down and test 35. It could also spring back up to the top of the range, so that looks bearish to neutral. Silver did look bullish until the last 3 weeks, and now it's rolled over with a large red candle, so that looks lower. Gold is at the top of this range, okay? See a pivot high here. Pivot high, that's how we define these ranges, is where these pivots are at. We've got another series of these pivot highs, so gold cannot get over, at least as far as this ETF is concerned, this area, about 192 or so. In the last 2 weeks, we had a red bar and then an igniting red bar. That looks like that could ignite a move lower. So that looks lower. Now we're going to get into the major sectors quickly. Let's look at overall energy sector. That looks like it's rolling over towards the right of the chart, even though it's had a nice run over the last 3 years. It looks like we have this igniting bar. Now we have this pivot that made a lower high. Some more red bars, some more selling. And now we've got another lower high pivot. So there's a lower pivot, a lower low, and a lower high. So this looks lower. Energy generally looks lower. Financials also affect a large part of the economy. This sector looks pretty weak, more bearish than anything. We will see how that plays out over the next few weeks. So that looks lower to neutral. We'll look at consumer discretionary sector, where things that people want to buy. That looks slightly bullish. We definitely had a low here at the end of last year. We did make a new pivot high and a new pivot low, and now we've consolidated for about 6 weeks and had a closing breakout above this large green candle and this other red candle. So that looks higher. So that looks good. Consumer discretionary. Healthcare looked pretty good at different times this year, from September till the end of the year. Healthcare had a very nice run up to this top of this range and then sold off. And then recently in March into April, healthcare again had a nice run. So we'll see if healthcare can make a turn up or continue down. So that looks kind of neutral to me in healthcare. This technology ETF is kind of more closely related to the NASDAQ than anything else. So it's going to look very comparable to that. Features all these technology companies. But we definitely have confirmed uptrend. We've got this all-time low in October, a new pivot high, higher pivot low, higher pivot high, higher pivot low right there. And we just had a nice consolidation about 6 weeks in a closing breakout. Well, that definitely looks great. That looks higher. That's kind of what I'm looking for too. We've got this move up, move sideways, and then the next move up. So I was going to buy this. I would have bought over the high of this bar, which was 152.18. So let's say I put my order in the system at 152 and a quarter. I would look to buy however many shares was appropriate for me, and then by the end of the week, I would already be showing a profit. That's the idea behind these consolidation and breakout moves. It's a continuation move higher. So you're making some assumptions there, but you're also waiting for price to get above the breakout area before you enter. And you can see this pivot right here is in about the same area. So if it breaks this area, it also broke that pivot. So that's significant. It starts moving higher above this area. And if you want a quick target, you just look over here by the next pivot. So the next target would be, around 163, 164. That's your next area of interest or concern. So that looks good. And we'll take a quick look at the utilities sector. That looks lower. Finishing the week. This is kind of the opposite of what we just seen. This looked good. It consolidated sideways and then broke down with a large red selling bar, range expansion bar. So that looks lower in utilities. We'll take a look at industrial stocks, more related to the Dow Jones. This one had, the sell-off, a lower low, and it had a very strong push towards this top. And then almost kind of got in a range here since November. It's been in a range. Recently, it's kind of shown some weakness where it could, just can't get over this area around the 100, 101 area. And could go either way. It could roll over or it could break out and start to get some strength. So that's kind of a neutral area, even a neutral pattern. Still consolidating. That one may need some more time to cook. So let's take a look at, this is overall materials sector, which covers different industrial materials or raw materials that are used for things like manufacturing and other chemical materials, stuff like that. This sector has been in a range here. You can see that range. And it sold off out of that range, came back up a little bit, about halfway, and has since consolidated, kind of rolled over. I don't like that. That looks like that could go lower. So materials looks like doesn't look very strong. Then we've got communication services sector, XLC. See, that was really sold off hard since last August of 21, I should say. Continue to sell off through 2022. Finally, can I make this turn around December of 2022? Made a nice move out of that low area. So this would be a low, higher pivot low. This would be a higher pivot high at this resistance area. Then I made a higher pivot low and has since moved up and is now on a weekly basis has a closing breakout above that area. That's a pretty nice spot to buy because that's not a very big candle. So that would give you pretty good risk to reward buying on that candle. So XLC looks very good, very strong, and similar to technology. Here I'm showing you the XLP. This is the consumer staples, which is kind of the opposite of consumer discretionary. So this is stuff that you kind of need to buy over and over again. It is at resistance. You can see the resistance pivots here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now it's rolling over again. So this looks like it's hit its destination and is turning back over to somewhere in here that it's going to retest some other part of this range. My guess would be, just looking at these candles, somewhere in this area, maybe 72 or so, 73, but it does not look higher at this time. Here, this is kind of the retail sector, but you can pretty clearly see our stages on this of, 1, 2, big stage 3, and then 4. And now we're back in this back and forth stage 1. So this sector does not look like it's ready to really move either way. It could go lower. It's definitely trending towards the lower end of the range and has sat there for about 8 or 10 weeks. So if this does not turn up, I would expect this to roll over soon. So this needs to turn up if our economy is going to stay in a good place, because retail is kind of affects everybody also. So that's kind of usually where I stop with the sectors. I'll share one. We'll wait till we get to the other analysis, but that's the main sectors I look at. I do look at other ETFs, but we're not going to have time for that today. So that just gives you a general overview of the economy and the sectors of the economy, okay? So that's your overall context. Now, let's get into the watch list that I had put together for you guys. This shows this week's list, but I'm going to go to stocks to watch now. This is just one I created through a search. So we'll try to get through this fairly quickly. Again, I'm going to spend about 10 seconds per chart so we can narrow this larger list down to a smaller, more manageable list for this week. So again, I'm just going to go over these charts real quick. And I kind of like to use a longer term chart, maybe like a 3-year chart. And we can see where these trends can kind of change, okay? Just like we did on the ETFs. So just remember what I said about the ETFs, which markets we're kind of looking up and which we're kind of looking down. Can you remember that? Like technology, looking up, retail's not. The other one that was communication services was kind of looking up versus something like gold and silver really were not. So just keep that in mind, in the back of your mind. So here's one that was on my initial search, but right away we can see that it's had a huge run up. So I generally don't buy stocks that have had that type of a run. That's just too much, too fast. I mean, this was just $1 stock, back in April, and now all of a sudden it's a $5 stock. So for me to call that a buy at this time, that means I would have to do some more research to see if what's the real value of the stock. This is a cheaper stock, and so for me, I would say sell, or not at this time. So that would probably come off my list for this week, because it's not something that I would buy right now. And I would probably put that on a different list. Okay. Next, we can see United Insurance Holdings Company. This definitely had the sell-off. Made a bottom, came up. It did have some consolidation in this area, and it had this kind of bottoming tail bar, red bar. That's kind of a nasty bar. That's one that shakes people out, and then it ripped higher. Most recently, it went sideways and then moved higher. So this looks like it's in a pretty decent trend up. Um, I would like to see it consolidate more before I bought it, or have a nice series of pullbacks and price to give me a chance, a better chance, I think, to get in, because at the top of this range is this area, which is almost double where we're at now. So what's the chance of this thing doubling this week? It's already had a huge move up. So in my opinion, um, not that I don't like it, probably though not this week. It's not the worst looking chart, but I think there's better opportunities. So for me, that would probably be, off the list at least for this week. Move these first two to a different list, okay? So that'd be kind of a hold. GSI technology. This has had a pretty nasty downtrend. All of a sudden, it's going to the moon. So that's a little weird. And for me, this would be a hold. Not for me at this time. Move it to a different list. It's just too far, too fast. Why did nobody want it? And then all of a sudden, in the last 2 weeks, like everybody wants it. What happened? That just doesn't make sense. So I have to investigate probably the story on that one to see if that's something I'm even interested in, or if that's just market games, I'll call it. Next, we're gonna go to Immunogen. This one was sideways for a long, long time, 3 years, pretty much sideways, and all of a sudden, again, it's going to the moon. So why is that? That's another investigation. It's a biotech, which is also scary. I would not be buying this at this time. That is a definite no. Too far, way too far, too fast, and I need more information. So that would be a hold or a sell. This is also, I want to say one more point. So when we're thinking buy, sell, or hold, if you if you currently hold this stock and it's done something like that, I'm immediately taking I'm taking half off. I'm taking probably 50% of my shares off the market at this time, or more. Maybe just keep like 10% or 20% of your shares, because while that could continue to go to the moon, it's more than likely going to sell off and go back to the floor. So when we're considering buy, sell, or hold, that is another consideration. Applied Digital Corp, that looks more like what I'm looking for, right? We had stage one. Then we had this huge run up in price to 35 bucks from 15 cents. A huge sell off. Then we went sideways for ever, over a year. And now we're starting to get some interest, right? We're getting that first kind of, had a little bit of interest here, sold off, had some more interest, and went sideways. And now we're igniting out of this area. So that looks like I may be interested in getting in above that, or if it pulls back, looking for my buy setup on that one. So that's more um, a buy or a hold or a wait and see on that one. Looks much better than the other charts. Not so extended. On a smaller time frame, it may look extended, but definitely one to keep on the list. Now we've got this one real quickly. Has some slight appreciation recently. It's definitely moved up from penny stock to into the $4 range, so that's looking good. That's a possible for this week. That doesn't look like that's too out of control. And I've got Augmetics, AUGX. This looks like it has, again, IPO, sell off, sell off, sell off, and now it's starting to get some buying interest. These, this would have been a great time to get in here on this candle. I didn't see it, so you don't always see these searches all the time. And this looks higher. This looks like a continuation higher. Um, Only concern is, has this moved too far too fast? It has had some consolidation through price, and then continued around and moved higher. So this looks higher. This looks like this could keep moving higher. But if it doesn't, protect yourself at all times. This company, Arlo Technologies, this looks like this has moved quite a bit. It has had some consolidation periods in here of like 2 to 4 weeks. Here's a 4 or 5 week consolidation, and then which gave investors time to think about it, and then investors chose to continue to buy this up. So that looks like that's pretty strong. Um, I think it's a little bit too far for me at this time, but I will keep it on the watch list. I would say if it gets over this area, you know, it could keep going higher, but I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a red bar form on Monday or Tuesday that you start to see this sell off. So that's kind of a wait and see on me, more of a hold. This one is Opera Limited ADR. So an ADR stands for an advanced depository receipt. This is code for this is a foreign company that trades on American exchange. That's what that means. And you can research the definition behind ADR for yourself, but this is too far, too fast for me. It's just like straight up, not for now. So for me, that would be a sell on that one for me. Now I'm going to, um, I hope you get a gist of what I'm looking to do, okay? So I'm just going to go through maybe 5 or 6 more of these charts. Maybe I'll just keep going, and I'm just going to count to 10. And at the end, I'm going to say out loud, buy, sell, or hold for me. You can think what you want to think. Okay, but here's the next one. Okay, so here's your choice now. Buy, sell, or hold. What do you see? Okay, for me, that would be more of a buy this time. Next. Okay, for me, that would be a hold. If I already owned it, I would hold it, or I may consider getting into it. Looks like it's starting to make a turn up. Now, this is a longer term chart, so it's going to be harder to see some of these smaller movements. We could take a look at that one on a smaller time frame, like we go down to like a 6 month chart. So that looks, kind of extended on this chart, but looks like it's made a turn. That could go higher above 575. I would consider that as a possible buy. Okay, so we're kind of using stage analysis and some smaller time frames too to make our choice. But so that could stay on my list. But just using this time frame, your initial thought, right? Buy, sell, or hold. Okay, so my initial thought would be sell because it's too far, too fast. If I owned it, I guarantee you I'd be taking some money off the table and let the other rest of the shares ride and raise my stop. So for me, that'd be a sell. Next one. Pretty much the same as the last one for me. That'd be a sell. Looks extremely strong. It's not a cheap ass stock. So that could continue on for another $100. We don't know, but it's. I don't like the risk reward to buy that one now. If I own some shares again, I'd be taking some money off the table and put my stop under this bar, maybe 140. Okay, so what do you guys think on that one? Me personally, would be more of a sell to hold. It's had a nice run. It's had some consolidation in between, but these last three bars tell me that we're coming up over here in this major resistance area. It's probably going to sell off. Would be my assumption or forecast on that one. Okay, what do you guys think of that one? For me, that would be more towards the buy at this time because we've got a closing breakout. It's a cheaper stock. I like that. It's had a nice uh, kind of a reversal of stage, right? We're in stage, you can see the stages clearly. Looks like we're starting to transition to stage two, and that has some upside potential. So it's more towards a buy or hold, watch and see. Okay, next. Okay, time's up. What do you guys think on that one? I think that's a potential buy. We've had a bottoming area. We've got a step up, another area, another step up. Now we just this week we just created another step up. Doesn't mean it's going up, but my forecast would be higher prices on that one. Again, protect yourself at all times if you're going to enter any of these stocks. Okay, what do you guys think about Vertra Systems? 10 seconds. Okay, for me that would be a buy or a watch. Let's see, got this nice big fat green bar, igniting bar. Um, but this one trades on very low volume. And it looks good right now, but I would like to see it either go sideways for a few weeks or even pull back. Maybe do something like that. It just kind of pulls back a little bit. So for me, that'd be more of a hold. Okay, guys, buy, sell, or hold on ACV auctions. So for me, that would be a buy or a hold. If I owned it, I'd hold it. Since I don't own it, I would like to see it pull back to this area, maybe to the 15 area. But you could make a case to buy over this high for a continuation of the move. But remember, it's up 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. So the chances are it's either going to consolidate or pull back. So that's more of a hold for me. Clear One Inc. Buy, sell, or hold. You got 10 seconds. So that one looks pretty strong, right? It's um, it's definitely had some time for the market to digest this through this area. And it ignited out of this area to the top of the range, and now it's exceeded that range. So I kind of like that one. I could see that continuing higher, or even have some sort of consolidation through price or time, and then enter that one. That looks pretty good. Cheaper stock. Probably needs some investigation as to what kind of company it is. Okay, next, National Western Life Group. So you can, buy, sell, or hold on this one. A little bit different. Okay, so that's pretty easy to see this consolidation sideways trend, right? Breaks out to the upside, pulls back, consolidates for 5 or 6 weeks, and then just rips. I mean, just puts in an unbelievable candle. So for me, that'd be a sell if I own it, or take profits, or not for me at this time. The main reason is this stock price is out of my comfort range, $398 stock. So I generally stay under 300 for my tolerance. You may not be comfortable with stuff that's over 50 bucks, and that's okay because I was at that point at one time in my investing too. I was not comfortable with stuff that was over $50 or certainly $100. Now I'm more up to where I'll buy something that's 300 bucks. Doesn't bother me. But for me, this is way too much too fast and overpriced. Not overpriced, but out of my price range. So let's go one more. I'll take a look at this. What do you think on this one? Buy, sell, or hold? So this one, again, you can pretty clearly see this trend. This is a new stock, probably less than 2 years ago. It's come back up. It's making higher highs and higher lows. I like that trend. And so I would expect this trend to probably continue. Maybe look for a pullback on this one. Could happen this week or next week or week after, but I would look for a pullback on this to enter this one. This looks more like the steady uptrend stock that is not too hard to get into versus a breakout type stock. So I'm not gonna go through every stock in this list. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. And what I'm gonna do next, I'll just show you last week's list. Okay, my watch list from. Let's see if I can find that. That's our ETF list. So that was one that came through my search this week. Now I'm going to go through last week's list, which is labeled this week's list, okay? And I'll just quickly show you what was on last week's list. So some of these are coming off, and I'll share with you why. Just go to candlestick charts, like a 3-year chart frame. So this is going to stay on. This is a subsector. This is SMH. This is the semiconductor ETF. So this ETF tracks certain semiconductor companies. So this one looks very positive, right? We've got a low, like the rest of the market in October, higher pivot low, higher pivot highs, higher pivot low, higher pivot low, now a breakout, right? So this is a buy over this week's bar is where I would expect to enter SMH. And then I had this on my list, which I do own, FDN, and this was also showing signs of bottoming out with a higher low, a consolidation, and then a closing breakout. So that also looks like a purchase above that week's high, which would be somewhere around 151. Okay, so that was on that list. XLV was on my list last week to see if it could turn around. It did not. So that is coming off of this week's list, going back to a different list. GDX, ditto, sold off, right? So that's coming off the list. Shop, which stands for Shopify, looks very positive. Had a closing breakout 2 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks of a sideways consolidation. So Shopify looks very good. That's going to stay on this week's list. Maybe a buy. Uber, we talked about previous videos. That looks also very positive, right? This looked down and out like it was going lower until it didn't. And now we had earnings, and it's kind of stuck the landing there with Closing breakout and 2 inside candles, that looks higher. Okay. Netflix has been a nice surprise this year. It's had it had kind of nasty sell-off here. It was in an uptrend and then sold off between January and March. I bought it somewhere in here. I had actually got out of it when it started selling off again because that was a higher low, or I mean a lower high. And then it turned around here the last couple weeks, and Netflix looks like it's resuming the uptrend. So that Netflix looks positive, and others. So um, Dropbox, I believe, also looked pretty good. At the end, yeah, Dropbox looked okay at the end of the week. Not as good as the others, but you can see the range back and forth between these points. It actually made a new low and came up and made a higher low, and that was looks like maybe starting another small uptrend there in Dropbox, but still in a range, kind of middle of the range. So that's kind of a more of a hold for me than a buy, but it does have some potential. So then what we do is, okay, I'm going to pause this video. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these either. What I'm going to do, stop this video, then I'm going to record a second video where I can put all these symbols after I've eliminated a lot of them, almost half of them, okay? And then we're going to go down, go through the list quickly again on a weekly chart and then a daily chart per symbol. And so the next video we'll go through about 60, maybe 50 or so different symbols. I don't want to overload you guys today, but this is kind of what it takes for me to get through my homework. And I think if you take it seriously, I think you'll find some opportunities for yourself in the stock market. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with a continuation video of this list after it's been all sorted and segregated to this week's list, upcoming on May 21st. So thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.